To understand the difference between godhood and humanity, we must first understand what godhood is and what humanity is. Godhood in Lord of the Mysteries is not merely about power. It is a fundamental state of existence tied to the remnants of the original creator, the collective of all things, an entity both rational and mad, lucid and confused. The nature of godhood is broken into three categories: true godhood, apparent godhood, and the vague conception of godhood that most people hold. True godhood belongs only to the oldest and highest entities, the original creator, his split personas, the celestial worthy and the primordial God Almighty, his direct offspring, and the beings first nurtured by the Great Mother. This essential godhood is what later Beyonders must contend with as they ascend. It is indestructible, eternal, and more than any singular consciousness can bear. Apparent godhood, on the other hand, is how this struggle manifests externally. A deity who has yet to fully suppress their true godhood may appear indifferent, gentle, or obsessed with a singular purpose. Each god manifests a different form of control or surrender to this force. This is why gods can be unpredictable, even seemingly paradoxical. Then, there is the vague conception of godhood, often mistaken for divinity itself. The cold, calculating selfishness of a high-level Beyonder who only seeks survival and power. This is not true godhood, but rather the first layer of humanity at its most primal. The godhood that Beyonders must contend with varies depending on their pathway and corresponding Sephiroth. Each pathway carries unique imprints of the old gods and the forces that shape them. Lumion, walking the Demoness and Red Priest pathways, asked, "The godhood I need to contend with has crazed, chaotic overtones, leaning towards destruction, conquest, and yin-yang coupling?" The Beyonders under the Great Mother may need to contend with the crazed aspects of fertility. Mr. Fool confirmed this, explaining that while these are general outlines, there are further nuances. The River of Eternal Darkness pathways, for example, must contend with remnants of the celestial worthy's psyche due to ancient ties. This means that the struggle against godhood is not just about power, it is about the specific nature of the corruption that seeps into one's mind and soul. This distinction is critical. No two gods contend with the same madness. No two gods lose themselves in the same way. The pathway determines the nature of the struggle. Humanity in Lord of the Mysteries is not a single concept, but rather a layered structure. The first layer is self-awareness, the instinct for survival, selfishness, and greed. Even entities like Aemon and the Hidden Sage possess this basic humanity, as it is necessary to contend with true godhood. Without it, they would be nothing more than vessels for the old gods. The problem arises when a Sequence Zero entity remains only at this first layer. If a god has no emotions, no sense of identity beyond this base instinct, then they become passive in their struggle against true godhood. Over time, they degrade into a mere extension of the forces they once sought to control. This is why entities like the Hidden Sage do not feel shame or dignity. They do not care about honor, only existence. They may appear godlike, but they are in truth hollow. The second layer of humanity is what we commonly recognize as human: love, benevolence, courage, sacrifice, justice, and compassion. It is also where negative emotions exist: hatred, vengeance, regret. This layer is shaped by experience, relationships, and the passage of time. This layer of humanity is what separates those who can retain themselves as gods from those who lose their identities. It is what makes Klein Moretti different from Adam, what keeps the prideful Medici from fully losing himself, and why the celestial worthy, at his peak, was beyond any traditional sense of humanity. To become a god is to struggle with the weight of godhood, but to remain human even as a god is an even greater challenge. Those who fail degrade into husks of their former selves, either indifferent or bound to singular, inescapable desires. Ultimately, godhood and humanity in Lord of the Mysteries are not opposites, but forces in constant conflict. To become a god is to struggle against true godhood, but to retain humanity is to refuse the complete loss of self. Perhaps that is why, even seated upon the throne of divinity, Klein Moretti still watches over the world, not as an indifferent God, but as a human who has yet to let go. What are your thoughts on godhood versus humanity? Is it possible to remain human while being a god? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the philosophy behind your favorite stories.